Hello everyone, this is Junpeng Wang from Visa Research. I'm glad to present our paper entitled SCANViz, Interpreting the Symbol Concept Association Captured by Deep Neural Networks through Visual Analytics. The co-authors are my colleagues Wei Zhang and Hao Yang from Visa Research. Two fundamental problems that deep learning tries to solve are recognition and generation, and to some extent those two problems can be considered as a reverse process. For example, in the image domain, the recognition process is to extract visual concepts from images and use symbolic annotations to describe them. In the example here, the recognition process converts the image to the four attributes that are described by the red text. In detail, we first recognize the object in the scene is a height with white color. The wall on the two sides and the floor on the bottom have yellow and gray colors respectively. In contrast, the generation process reverses this process. Given those four symbolic descriptions, it tries to generate an image satisfying those descriptions. Since we only focus on image domain in this paper, those two processes can be simplified as image to symbol and symbol to image. Both recognition and generation have been well studied in the deep learning field. However, few works investigated the essential connection between them. Recently, Google DeepMind has been working on this problem, and they proposed a DN model named SCAN to learn the symbol concept associations. SCAN is short for Symbol Concept Association Network. Despite the model's outstanding performance in learning the symbol concept associations, interpreting and diagnosing the model remains challenging. For example, how did the model extract different visual concepts from the images, and how the association between visual concepts and symbolic instructions is formed? This paper answers these questions through a visual analytics system named SCANViz. In the following, I will first introduce the necessary background about the model, and then I will discuss three concrete tasks that can be conducted with SCANViz. This work has used two image datasets with orthogonal visual concepts. The dataset on the left is called DeepMind Lab. It contains four visual concepts, which are the type of the object, the color of the object, the color of the wall and the floor. Images in the same row only differ in the corresponding visual concept. The dataset on the right is called a cartoon site, and the four visual concepts are the hairstyle, hair color, eye color, and face color of the cartoon character. The rightmost column of animated images shows the possible value for each visual concept. We are trying to see how unsupervised deep neural networks can learn the orthogonal concepts from these images. With these two experimental datasets, let me quickly introduce three deep learning models used in this paper. They are VAE, Beta VAE, and SCAN. VAE shorts for Variational Autoencoder. It's a very famous unsupervised learning model that often used for data reconstruction. As shown here, it contains two subnetworks of an encoder and a decoder. The encoder takes a high-dimensional image as input and compresses it into a lower-dimensional space, which is often called a latent space. In this simplified example, we assume the latent space has four latent dimensions, and the value distribution on each dimension follows a Gaussian distribution. The decoder takes a sample from the latent space and unrolls the sample to reconstruct the input image. The loss function of VAE contains two parts. The first part minimizes the pixel-wise difference between the input and the reconstructed image, which can be realized through a L2 loss. The second part enforces the value distribution on each latent dimension to be a unit Gaussian distribution through the KL divergence. A well-trained VAE model can perfectly reconstruct the original image from the lower dimensional space. Therefore, the latent space captures the essential information of the image data with less memory space. This can be considered as an information extraction process, whereas the latent space is the extraction result. Beta VAE introduces a hyperparameter beta to the second term of the VAE loss function. This parameter is usually larger than 1. Its purpose is to enforce the constraint on the latent space such that the latent space is regularized to some extent. As shown in previous works, Beta VAE has a good performance in disentangling the latent space. It enforces each latent dimension to focus on a single visual feature of the images. The SCAN model is similar to Beta VAE. However, it applies to the symbolic labels rather than the visual images. Training SCAN is conducted through two sequential steps. First, we train a beta VAE to extract visual features from the images, which is the blue component here. Second, the scan is trained on the labels of those images, which is the yellow component. While training it, we enforce the latent space of scan to be as similar as the pre-trained beta VAE, so that the association between the images and labels could be built. The constraint is enforced by the third term in the loss function of scan, which minimizes the KL divergence between the latent space of the images and the latent space of the labels. With a well-trained beta VAE plus scan model, we can do image-to-symbol inference by following the path of X, the encoder of X, the latent space of beta VAE, the decoder of Y, and Y hat. Similarly, the symbol-to-image inference will be conducted through the path of Y, the encoder of Y, the latent space of scan, the decoder of X, and X hat. As you can see, scan entangles two models. Interpreting and diagnosing it is a non-trivial task. Therefore, we developed a visual analytic system for this matter. The SCANViz system contains three visualization views. The first view provides an overview to different types of training statistics. It also enables users to explore the training images with different visual concepts. The second will demonstrate the network architecture of the beta VAE and scan. Through the interface, users can flexibly switch between different architecture modes to change the data flow. Meanwhile, this view also presents numerous sampled reconstructions and their distributions to disclose the generative power of scan. The last view uses a parallel coordinates plot to visualize the latent space of the beta VAE and scan. The current view demonstrates a latent space with 32 latent dimensions. The light yellow and light blue bands visualize the latent representations of the input symbol concept from scan and beta VAE respectively. Instead of elaborating the design details of each component, I'd like to show three concrete tasks conducted through the system. The tasks are model evaluation, latent space exploration, and interactive model training. Let's start with the first one, which evaluates the quality of the scan model. We monitored several statistics over the training to track scan's quality. Here, I'd like to briefly explain two of them. First, we evaluated the quality of symbol-to-image inference through both quantitative and qualitative evaluations. The qualitative evaluation is done by asking the model to generate images from the given symbol. For example, we generate images of gray head with different flow colors. The 4 pie charts summarize the distribution of the generated images in each visual concept. Hovering over different portions will highlight the corresponding generated images. The quantitative evaluation is done by computing the ratio of the generated images that match with the given symbol. Computing the ratio across different training epochs, we get a curve reflecting the quality evolution of the model. The quality of image-to-symbol inference can be evaluated similarly. Second, we track the variance of individual latent dimensions over the training. In the PCP, the variance of the latent representations for beta VAE and scan across different dimensions are represented by the blue and yellow band respectively. Dimensions with variance less than 1 are the dimensions that really encode a certain visual concept. Otherwise, their variance will be close to 1 because the loss function of VAE enforces the latent distribution to be a unique Gaussian distribution. From the short video, we can see the yellow band is being pushed towards the blue one, indicating the latent space of scan is getting more and more similar to that of the pre-trained beta VAE. The line chart on the top right contains 32 curves, one for each dimension. The horizontal axis of this chart is time, whereas the vertical axis is 1 minus variance. From the chart, we can see that the variance for most of the latent dimensions is close to 1 over the training. Only 7 dimensions have variance less than 1, which are the dimensions that really extract and encode the visual concept from the images. The second task is to explore the shared latent space between beta VAE and scan to reveal what individual dimensions have really captured. We review this from two analysis perspectives. The forward analysis uses the decoder of the beta VAE. It allows users to interact with individual latent dimensions and watch the reconstructed image to discover the encoded visual concept. As shown in this example, D4 controls the wall color. The variance of D7 is around 1, and it has no impact to the reconstructed image. D31 controls the object type. D18 controls the flow color. D20 also controls the flow color. For the cartoon dataset, we can see that both D1 and D2 control the hair color. D3 controls the eye color. D7 and D9 control the hair style. D30 controls the face color. Other dimensions have variance around 1 and have no control to the reconstructed image. It is obvious that multiple latent dimensions can control the same visual concept. To find all dimensions that control a single visual concept, we can switch to backward analysis, which is conducted using the encoder of the beta VE. Feeding one image into the encoder, we get a 32D latent representation of the image, which is shown as the blue curve here. Feeding another image with a different flow color, we can get another curve. Feeding images with all possible flow colors and aggregating the resulting curves into the red band, we find out all latent dimensions that are affecting this visual concept. In this particular example, dimension 18, 20, and 21 are the major dimensions controlling the flow color. Apart from them, D11 and D31 also have minor effect to the flow color. The third task I want to demonstrate here is how we can use SCANViz to interactively train the scan model. Assume the target concept to be learned is gray floor in this case. First, we specify this by directly changing the target value of the flow color to be gray. The circle with a cross for the other 3 dimensions indicates an unspecified value. A well-trained model should be able to generate images with gray floor and have diversity in all the other 3 dimensions, since the value of that 3 dimensions could be anything. Next, we train the scan model by gradually increasing the feature diversity in the training data. At the first stage, we use images with gray floor but different object colors to train the model for 2000 epochs. While training, we monitor the quality of scan through the symbol-to-image inference with the target concept as input. All 3 views of SCANViz will be updated to synchronize the changes over the model training process. For example, from the scan view, we can see the object in the reconstructed image turns into ice lolly gradually. The percentage of ice lolly in the 60 reconstructed samples also increases over the training. This is because the model believes gray floor images can only have ice lolly as the object, since it is biased by the training images with insufficient diversity. From the latent view, the standard deviation of latent dimension D4, D18, D20, and D31 becomes smaller, as the corresponding bands in yellow are getting thinner, which is consistent with the increase of the 4 curves in the statistics overview. To the end of stage 1, the scan model is able to generate gray floor images, but with diversity in object color dimension only. At stage 2, we add images with different wall colors into the training set and continue to train the model for another 2000 epochs. The most obvious change at this stage is that scan relax is constrained on latent D4 as reflected by the drop of the curve in the overview, as well as increasing width of the corresponding band in the latent view. Meanwhile, we can see the increasing diversity of the wall color dimension from the generated images in the scan view, indicating that scan learns that gray floor images can also have diverse wall colors. Coming to stage 3, we add images with different object IDs into the training. Similarly, we can easily observe that scan relaxed is constrained on dimension D31, which controls the object ID dimension. From the rightmost pie chart, we can also see that SCAN generates images with different object IDs. To the end of the training, SCAN becomes very robust to the target concept and can generate grid floor images with diversity in all other 3 dimensions. Over the training, the yellow and purple curves keep high. They are dimension 18 and 20, which control the floor color. Their consistently high values indicate the strong constraint on the floor color dimension. As a result, the generated images can only have gray floor color. To conclude my presentation, we introduced a visual analytics system named SCANViz in this work. The system can effectively help deep learning experts to evaluate the symbol concept association captured by SCAN model, interpret the high-dimensional latent space of SCAN and beta VAE, dynamically interact with SCAN and its training process. With that, I'd like to thank for your attention, and please feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.